Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's special event. My name is Miraj Periwal. I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at eFolder, and I'm going to be your host for today's webinar. Today's topic is FastChat and Q&A, 2016 Anchor Product Roadmap. Today, you're going to get the chance to hear from two of the people in charge of our File Sync and Share solution for the MSP channel, Matt Dugan and Pierre Tapia, and you're going to get the chance to ask them any questions you have about the future of Anchor after you hear a little bit about what's on tap for Anchor in 2016. So just to go over a few logistical items before we get into today's session, today's webinar is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar will be made available on our YouTube channel, and we are going to email the slides to those of you who are attending today. Now, we do strongly encourage questions throughout the webinar. We do have a special extended Q&A session planned for the end or toward the end of today's session. But if you have questions before that, please insert them into the question log, and we will try to get to them on the fly or toward the end of the webinar. So let's go over today's agenda. First, we're going to introduce Matt and Pierre, our two people in charge of Anchor. We're again going to have Matt cover what the Anchor team accomplished in 2015 before diving into what's ahead and what's on tap for Anchor this year. We're again going to have an extended Q&A session where you can have the opportunity to ask Matt and Pierre your questions about the future of Anchor or about the future of the file sync market in general. So without further ado, let's introduce our two guests. Pierre Tapia is the VP of Product here at eFolder. He worked at Anchor before Anchor got acquired by eFolder, and since has become the VP of Product here. So he's managing all of eFolder product lines and their development. And we have Matt Dugan, who is our Anchor Product Manager. Matt is in charge of kind of the mission and vision of the Anchor platform, and he directs kind of a product vision for the Anchor product. Matt and Pierre, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome.
Thanks for having us. Niraj, thanks for having us, and thanks to everyone who's joined today.
Right. So let's go ahead and get started with a year in review, Anchor 2015. Matt, if you'd like to kind of take the floor.
Absolutely. So 2015 was a huge year for us involving Anchor. We released just recently Web Preview, which is also on mobile right now. You'll see it on iOS very shortly. It's already delivered on Android. Very exciting feature there. It allows you to view content on the web and all sorts of feature-rich involvement there for searching based on granular information. But really the main value here is ability to identify content and view it prior to downloading it so that you don't have to waste storage or bandwidth. And this is also a precursor to view-only permissions on the web. So we've got the best technology in the industry here. We're very much excited for it.
Yeah, this is a great feature. It supports, our viewer supports a ton of file formats, loads quickly. If you've got a big document, it'll load a page at a time, so you don't have to worry about it downloading everything. Rendered all in HTML5. It's a beautiful web viewer. I'd recommend you check it out.
Yeah, I think over 50 file formats currently supported, so and that number continues to grow. And next on the list, we've got LandSync that we just recently delivered. This one is huge, especially in bandwidth pay-per-use areas, and also when you're onboarding some clients or new employees. As soon as they come on board, you give them a new machine, and then they have to start downloading all this content. Instead of hitting the server and sending this information over the internet, which might cost you some bandwidth, we have this functionality that allows you to pull this data directly from your peers on the local area network. So it can be seen as a money saver and a time saver. Very consistent utilization here. We love this feature.
Yeah, we've benefited from this ourselves in the office. The key use case here is, you know, Niraj on the marketing team uploads 10 gigs of files to the Anchor cloud, and then we're on the network here in the office, and everybody's computer says, oh, there's 10 gigs of video files that are now available for download. Well, instead of all of us at once saturating the pipe, hitting the Anchor servers, we'll actually pull from Neeraj's machine, and then as our peers get it, we'll also pull from our other peers. And we save on a lot of bandwidth that way.
And what Pierre just described is, some redundancy of data transfer that does not bottleneck directly to Neeraj's machine. It actually, as Pierre indicated, it daisy chains and provides the data to the next person who can then also become a data provider to assist with those transfers.
On the local area network.
Yep, all existing on that LAN. We delivered user groups as well, which was huge for time saving, and this also is a precursor to a granular permission scheme that we'll be talking about later on. However, this allows you to aggregate all of your users into specific groups. If you've got the marketing team, you've got the product team, you've got the support team, the development team, the finance team, etc. You want to be able to, maybe manage subscriptions to content on a very simple one-click or one action per group basis, rather than granular management of each individual account. So bucketing accounts into a group fashion is a time saver, which translates to saving you guys money, a much more profitable feature here.
Yeah, this is a very flexible container. You put your users in, and you say, all right, this group should have access to A, B, and C team shares. Well, anytime that a new member gets added to that group or a member needs to be removed, you simply uncheck that checkbox for the user in that group, and they'll lose all access to the corresponding team shares. So it allows you to manage content subscription, like Matt said, in a very simple one-click type of way.
Onboarding and offboarding is at the click of one button now, which is huge. We also delivered a localization support engine. We've got the entire framework situated, and it's currently translated into German as well for the web user interface. We're looking at some additional language translations in the future. That's all based on, demand, and if we see that there's validated need there. So if you guys do have some additional requests for support of additional languages, I know a few of you have already been communicating directly with me, but feel free to reach out to your account manager or your sales rep, or directly to me at mdugan@efolder.net. I'd be happy to take up that.
Great.
Awesome. So before we move on to a few new features that the Anchor team introduced in 2015, there are a few questions regarding what we just talked about. So let's see. We have a question here from Paul asking, sorry, we'll get to that later, but we have a question here from John asking, can I define the LAN sync subnet? We have multiple subnets.
LAN sync subnets. That's a good question. It's something we're going to have to ask our development team to find out for sure. It's a very simple peer-to-peer protocol that we've implemented. So we just need to find out if the subnet provides any kind of barrier to transfer, and we can find out. We invite, was it Paul, to send a request to our support team, and we'll make sure that that gets escalated properly to support@efolder.net. Thanks for that question, though. It's a good one.
Does LAN sync work with team shares?
Absolutely. LAN sync works with all subscribed content that you have your machine subscribed to, and machine subscriptions exist for your routes. So you have your personal route, and then you also have your team share route that you have subscriptions to that sync down the content. You can specify which syncs down to each individual machine. However, LAN sync is absolutely supporting for that specific type of functionality.
Great. And then a couple more questions. Jeff is asking, when will Web Preview be available for on-prem partners?
That's a great question. It's a frequent question that comes up too. We're about to deliver 2.4.1, which is our latest and greatest. That should be coming out mid to late January here, looking at maybe 2-week turnaround time to get that one out the door. However, immediately concluding that, we will be transitioning to our delivery of this web preview feature on private cloud. It will provide the ability for you to have your own isolation of your web preview server on site for private cloud installations, or you'll have the choice of using our server if you'd like to offload that, the system requirements, so to speak, to us. You'll have the opportunity to choose between those two deployment methods.
Okay, great. So let's move on now to even more features that we introduced in 2015.
Yep, so a huge one that was widely requested that we nailed down was mobile photo and video backup. We did some research to the likes of competitors that had a really nice iteration of this, for example, a Dropbox, so to speak, and we nailed that. We didn't copy, we actually beat it. So whereas mobile photo and video backup, you've got only minimal options to choose from on how you want to back things up over Wi-Fi or over the network, all or nothing type of deal. We have very granular options to choose from so that you get full customization on how you're uploading this content. So if you think of a use case being offsite, like maybe insurance claims, and you take a bunch of photos, as soon as you're snapping those photos, our tool is immediately syncing those up to the Anchor server so that they are readily accessible by anybody that might be subscribed to your content. So you've got this camera uploads folder that immediately is created in your My Files, and you'll be able to access your folders on the web or through the mobile app immediately. ConnectWise billing integration was a huge one as well. No longer do you need to manage your billing in multiple different instances and then reconcile between ConnectWise and Anchor. Now we have further built on our ConnectWise integration where no longer is it just for professional services automation in the sense of ticketing, but we're now delivering a billing integration where you can manage all of your billing directly from ConnectWise, and it directly seamlessly integrates with Anchor to get real-time updates to pull on a billing schedule that you design and that you control. So we developed and delivered this feature so it's agnostic to your billing needs. So we're still looking for some feedback to maybe even improve this in a V2 or version 3 iteration. So so far there's been no criticism. It's been all love and easy money saver there. API v2 was huge. It allowed for OAuth 2, a new authentication method. It unlocks additional functionality from our products so that if you are taking advantage of our API, you'll be able to control even more functionality through integrations. So we're very much excited with that. We've already got our mobile apps being transitioned to API v2. So very exciting times for the future and anybody who's interested in third-party integrations.
Yeah, and with API v2, for those that are, are developing for the Anchor platform, we've got beautiful documentation on our knowledge base with examples of the responses and requests that you can submit to the API. So I'd recommend checking it out. We've been working on our API ever since the beginning, and it's really allowed people to extend the Anchor platform in custom ways and unique ways.
And some additional features, I'm going to rip through these ones real quickly just because they're kind of on the minor side, but the ability to drag and drop files and folders on the web. So you can rearrange things. You can drag individual files or multiple with multi-select options, drag them directly into a folder to rearrange content right in front of your eyes without having to use the Move widget or the modal that pops up that allows you to integrate with a kind of a tree structure, directory tree format there. We did password expiration policies, which are great for a granular control over the security. If someone logs into the web app, you want to be able to maybe on first use expire that password or expire it after 6 hours, etc. Two-factor authentication across all clients. This includes mobile, any desktop client that's installed on an actual physical desktop machine or laptop, tablets, mobile phones, and the Outlook plugin. They're all protected with two-factor authentication, which supports SMS, email, and authenticator application for that authentication method.
Yeah, and two-factor authentication, I just want to mention here quickly, if you look at consumer-grade file sync apps, they're not going to have this on the desktop client. You do not have features within Dropbox or OneDrive that say, when you're installing the desktop client, hey, you need to receive a text message to verify who you are first. Anchor does have that, and this came from lots of requests from our partners saying this is how you harden the security on the complete platform. And so I just want to point that out because it is a big difference.
Yeah, and for talking a little bit more deeply into that security vulnerability, if someone were to be able to get the .exe file of one of those competitor applications and they already knew the login and password for a client or an end user, they could easily install that and register it to have immediate access to that content without any real knowledge of that end user. So this prevents data leaks. This prevents ill intent and corporate espionage, so to speak. Last thing on the list here, we've got collision events logged in Windows Event Logs. This is huge for those RMM tools and some of the PSA tools that do monitoring of the system logs. This will help you trigger and monitor for event IDs that are specific to certain events that occur within Anchor. Right now, we've got it set for collision event happened or collision happened and then collision is resolved. So you can generate a ticket that says, boom, there's a collision, we need to take action right now. And then the moment that that's actually done, you will have a confirmation based on that event trigger to send another email indicating this is resolved, no longer is an action necessary. So this is huge for visibility with real-time updates.
Awesome. So let me see here if there are any questions pertaining to what we just discussed. Let's see. So, Kurt wants a little bit more explanation on collisions. So if you can explain
Sure. Yeah, so a collision, the most common use case is when, let's say, Pierre and myself are collaborating over some files. Let's say we have one PowerPoint presentation open on each individual's machine, and it's the exact same version that we pulled directly from the web. So the moment Pierre and I are working on it, I might want to save my work and commit an edit. If Pierre commits his edits at the exact same time, there's a race case that happens. So both Pierre's version of the file and Matt's version of the file are trying to sync up to the server at the exact same time, which can cause a collision. So what happens in our tool, we have automatic collision resolution that you can specify to automatically rename the file, or we also have the ability to even delete your version so that you allow the server to remain the most up-to-date version, or discard your local edits, things of that nature. So not only is our tool intelligent to automatically resolve those things in whichever fashion that you configure it for, but we're also trying to get that type of event out to some of your tools that you're all familiar with. You live and die by them, and so we want to make sure that this whole collision events are logged in Windows Event Logs so that your tools are friendly to play with them if you wanted a different user interface for monitoring and resolving this type of issue.
Great. And there are a couple questions here. Robert is asking documentation about specific alerts, and Bob is asking about documentation for user groups. So where can partners find the documentation they need?
Those are great questions. We have a robust knowledge base, and I'm very proud of it. Pierre and I have been working very, very hard to get as much information and education into your hands so that when you're working with Anchor, you're very confident and you're educated and resourceful. Our knowledge base is filled and fleshed out with an article that's dedicated specifically to this collision events log in Windows Event Logs. We've got articles that are dedicated to the automatic collision event resolution in those configurations, and also an entire article dedicated to groups. So if you navigate the knowledge base, you'll be able to find all sorts of content. Every one of these features that we've gone through up to this point has dedicated knowledge base articles, maybe with the exception of the custom API session tokens and the password expiration policies, because those got thrown into existing articles just to enhance and update them.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. So now let's kind of move on to Anchor 2016. What's on tap?
Yeah, so a very exciting time for us with Anchor in 2016. We've got collaborative document editing that's on the horizon. We're very close to pushing that one out the door. The same with Selective Sync. And we've got a little bit of a surprise for you guys. We're going to be providing a real-time demo of the collaborative document editing. I'll walk through that as Pierre kind of speaks to the value and the functionality there. And then we'll do Selective Sync, and I'll speak to the slide that we have there and also show you a nice little video that we have for that functionality. And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about file and folder permissions. Now, these are granular file and folder permissions that are going to be mimicking later on down the road more of an NTFS or a file system permission structure. Currently in Anchor, we do have file and folder permissions. If you take advantage of sharing out a folder, you can specify when an end user can update, can edit, or can delete that content. and then also even file locking that will, render that content. File and folder locking will render that content read-only for everyone else that's subscribed or shared with that content. However, it's permitting the locker to edit it during that period of time.
So yeah, 3 big features here in 2016 coming early: collaborative document editing, selective sync, file and folder permissions. This is great news. These are very highly requested features from our partner base. So why don't we take a look at collaborative document editing. I mean, ultimately, this technology is going to allow you to edit your documents in real time with other teammates on the web. And the support for this spans documents, presentations, and spreadsheets. We obviously support all Microsoft Office formats. The development team has been working extremely hard to make this the most faithful solution possible to the format itself, so that when you import, export, you're keeping high fidelity versions with support for all of the formatting changes you've made and much more. So why don't we go ahead and take a look?
Sure. So,
do we have a slide on file formats that we want to show first, or
yeah,
dive right into the demo?
Okay.
And so real quickly, they're robust. Just like with our web preview, we've got a significant amount of file formats here. Obviously, the ability to edit files is a little bit more complex than the ability to view them. So we see in the web preview we have over 50 file formats that are supported there. Here we've got a nice laundry list of the documents, spreadsheets, and presentations that you'd be able to edit here. So we've got a vendor-agnostic viewer and a vendor-agnostic editor that we're very excited for. No longer do you need to be married to either Microsoft or maybe even Google for Google Docs now. We've got these universal file formats that we're supporting for forward-proofing and future-proofing this solution.
Awesome. So why don't I go ahead and flip my screen over to you, Matt, and then you can show us a demo. Give me a second here.
Great, thank you, Niraj. Yep. Confirmation that you guys, all right, perfect. So I'm going to ask Pierre to speak to the value here while I click around and show you guys some of this functionality and some of the value.
Yeah, so as you can see, Matt's looking at a word processing interface that might seem very familiar to you. It's got all the features that you would expect: the ability to create tables, the ability to center text, left align, right align, to insert images, to insert graphics. This is, like I said, a high fidelity editor for Word, spreadsheets, and PowerPoint presentations or presentations. This is all run in HTML5, so you're getting a fast and snappy native experience in the browser, with the ability to insert diagrams, charts, and other graphics. As you can see, we're even loading up a spreadsheet editor within the Word document, as you might expect from a tightly integrated productivity solution. And you can see features like highlights and updates and headers all apply. So yeah, extremely flexible solution. This is not your kiddie rich text editor. This is a full-blown, very flexible word processing solution we're looking at here.
All right, so let's switch over then as well. Thank you, Pierre. Let's switch over to maybe some PowerPoint editing, just to show a little bit of functionality here. Obviously, you guys are familiar with this PowerPoint slide, so I'll create maybe another slide over here, and Pierre, you can kind of walk us through.
So Matt has basically imported a PowerPoint slide, and you can see how faithfully it has taken this, including all of the formatting, all of the placement, the free-floating text and pictures, the full bleed background. You notice that he's able to rotate components, that he's able to apply themes at the top there, that there's the ability to add different types of slides, and the functionality that we've extended here, the functionality that we've added, we just keep extending. So even support for various bullet types. Again, we are in the browser. This is an HTML5 experience. Nothing else need be downloaded. It's a hyper-flexible solution.
All right, now let's go to the spreadsheet editor.
Okay. So the spreadsheet editor is actually very impressive. This spreadsheet editor has full support for formulas, the standard formulas that you would expect with solutions like Excel and other solutions. The ability to sort and create filters. You see Matt is currently manipulating a few of the different cells on the spreadsheet. This you can hardly tell the difference between your local desktop editor and the web experience that we're looking at now. Even if you look at some of the themes that can be applied at the top there, neutral, bad, good, there's a whole array of options that are made available to you. And the formula support is also very powerful, where you have the ability to apply formulas to multiple cells by dragging one cell and bringing it down. So all in all, just an extremely powerful solution. Full support for tab sheets, for multiple sheets, so you can create an entire workbook.
Great, thank you. Neeraj, let's pass back to you then.
So why don't we go over a few questions before we continue the presentation. Let me start showing my screen though. So we've got something to look at. Second. Okay.
I've got you live again.
Great. So let's see. Current exacting, when you do collaborative editing and multiple users are accessing, the document at one time, are you able to see, where people are making changes? Is that, again, kind of a live environment?
That's a great question. And unfortunately, our demo is not demonstrating that capability. However, it's important to add that, so thank you for that reminder. We do offer the ability for real-time collaborative editing. So Pierre, myself, Neeraj, and whoever was helpful in asking that question, we could all be joining in on the exact same content in the web. Mind you, we're not downloading this content to our local machines. There's no requirement for a local application to be installed on our local machines. This is all existing within the web. We are able to collaboratively edit, so if Pierre's on paragraph 1, Matt's on paragraph 2, Neeraj is on paragraph 3, we will all see our location specifically within the document or the content that we're editing, and in real time it will refresh and populate all of those updates in front of our faces.
So what you'd see is the cursor is placed on the document wherever the person is editing, just like you would expect from a real-time collaborative editor, and when a person is making a change, it will lock paragraphs so that you prevent overwriting each other's content.
Now, we also will have the commenting and chat functionality there as well, so that if, for any reason the collaborators are not dialed in on a phone call and they just want to be using chat as they're working and collaborating, they can take advantage of that functionality too.
Awesome. Interesting question here from Brian. He says, are you suggesting that perhaps clients may not even need Microsoft Office anymore, or do you picture the solution as complementing desktop versions of Office rather than replacing it?
So we have confidence that our editor is flexible enough to handle the majority of use cases. But we understand that Office as a local application will probably have some staying power, at least in the near term. So very likely it'll be a complementary tool, but what we see is these editors are evolving more and more and more and becoming more and more powerful, and people are relying less and less on their locally installed productivity format editors. So this is definitely a viable replacement. We are building it in such a way that you don't have to choose between one or the other over features. It's really about just how it's applied in the workplace.
Yeah, and to speak a little bit further to that, our web editor is fully feature-rich. We understand that the Microsoft Office Online versions of those applications are stripped-down versions in comparison to the local applications. So we're providing what many would consider a local application in the web browser. And then we're also going to be providing this on local applications as well. This is what we're doing with Anchor, with our exclusive technology here. However, we are interested in further developing into the integrations with Microsoft Office. So you'll see Anchor playing friendly and giving you the choices of doing whatever you'd like, whether you want to stay married to Microsoft or not.
All right, well, let's move. Thank you for all those great questions. Let's move on to the next feature, which is Selective Sync.
Yeah, so Selective Sync is going to allow you to save space on your local computers. No longer will you have to sync down all of your content. You can specify on a subfolder level exactly what content you want to be syncing down. So it's not going to be granular to the file level. That will come later on down the road. This iteration of Selective Sync will be, right now we have it so that you can specify at the team share level with machine management or machine subscription management which team shares you want subscribe or sync down to your local machine. This will allow you to specify more granularly at the subfolder level of those team shares. This is also a precursor to view-only permission support. What that means is that if you can sync it down, or if you are not permitted to sync down your local device, then by default that implies that you can only view things on the web. And again, that's with our fully feature-rich web preview value there. We also have the asynchronous data synchronization for a faster and more responsive sync experience. This is going to allow you to, we have two streams or multiple streams now that specify between large files and small files. So if you really need to request something of a small file update, that's going to remain up to date in real time. The larger files will be separated into a queue, so you're no longer backed up by, let's say, maybe Niraj's recording of this webinar the moment that goes up on the server. So we've got a video here that I want to show as well.
Yeah, so why don't I play the video and you guys can talk over it if you'd like.
Yeah. So here we've got, obviously, this is a local file system in Windows, and we're showing the ability to specify subfolders of some content that you have synced locally. And the moment you deselect it and then hit OK, you'll see these subfolders immediately disappear. They're no longer there in the right window. So that's what's indicating that if you did sync down content that you no longer need, you can then just immediately wipe it off if it's a subfolder. Let's say you're subscribed to the finance, or let's just say the marketing, and Niraj creates a new webinar folder that you don't really want to sync locally. If you have all the other content synced down, you can just specify that's a subfolder and opt out of it or deselect it. Very intuitive and simple, as you see with the advanced options over on the left-hand side. So we're very excited for this.
Awesome. One quick question before we move on, which is when you unselect a folder to be synced to a local machine, what happens if that folder is already on the machine? Would it go to the trash, or what would the behavior look like?
It is entirely removed from the machine. I don't believe that it's an actual delete that goes to the recycle bin. It is eliminated from that file system entirely.
Got it. Okay.
It will remain on the server, however, and you will always have access to it with web access. It's just you will not have a local copy synced down to your local desktop client.
Awesome. Thank you. And finally, file and folder permission.
Great. Again, hugely exciting time. We know that a lot of you partners and prospects have been requesting this. So the time is near. We're going to be releasing this very soon. We've got restricted access, editing, and sharing by users or groups. Now remember when we spoke about the groups, this is a huge time saver. We want you guys to be able to assign permissions to specific teams rather than granularly create a permission scheme on a per user basis. We've got role-based restrictions available as well. So if you're a certain type, whether you're a content manager or an editor or an owner or just a viewer, things like that, modeled after NTFS permissions. Later on down the road, further down the road, we're going to see that we might also tie directly into Active Directory to inherit those groups and the NTFS permissions. Right now, we're going to be delivering what we modeled after NTFS permissions as a precursor to play friendly in the future when we further flesh out those integrations. And it allows for hierarchical inheritance and overrides. So if you've got certain permissions set at a higher level, and that will then trump whatever set then at maybe a more granular level on a per user basis. So do we have any questions maybe on the file and folder permissions as I kind of walk us through a use case here on the graphic? So if we've got the marketing interns, we've got the entire marketing, excuse me, parent folder, then you've got some of those child folders with budgets, flyers, financials, files. Now, I may be permitted to access the marketing flyers, and I may be permitted to access the marketing directory as a whole. However, it may be that I need to be blocked away from the budgets and the financials because that's confidential information that the heads of the marketing team are in charge of. Similar thing with finance team. If I'm just working on, the budgets and the flyers and the marketing, maybe I'm not supposed to see the financials and vice versa. If I am the VP of marketing, however, I may need to be permitted for access to everything. So I'm going to have the ability to check into the marketing folder and all of the subfolders and all the contents within, depending on my granular permission structure. As you see, the marketing interns on the left-hand side are an entire group. The finance team in the middle is an entire group, but the VP of marketing is an individual. So we have permission schemes that can apply to each group and or individual as granular as you like to customize it through the folder, subfolders, and down to the file.
Great. So not a lot of questions about permissions in particular, but we do have a lot of questions in general, and now we'd like to open the floor really to Q&A. So let's actually try here to. Do you guys want to go?
Yeah, let's just open it up if.
Yeah. So let's see. So, kind of just 1 second, I'm figuring out something technically. Great. So, let's see. One of the major questions, and I'm sure you were expecting this, is really about timing. When can partners expect, to be able to really enjoy these features and deploy them to their users?
Well, what we can guarantee is that sometime this century we will have.
But in all seriousness, these features are ones that we're working on for delivery in, for example, you saw a video of Selective Sync. If you're seeing a video of its full functionality and we're talking through it confidently, we're very confident that it's going to be released in a matter of weeks, if not months tops. We're looking at a Q1, Q2 release of that feature. However, because it is involved directly with the sync operation, the sync process, and we broke out multiple streams, getting a little technical there, but because it gets a little bit complex, we want significant testing with our QA teams before we actually release. So that's going to maybe be a little bit of delay there just because we want to harden it and make sure that it's perfect to top shape before it hits the market. As far as the collaborative web editing, we're pretty close there as well. We showed you real-time demo of that also. The functionality is there. We've got a couple things that we want to finalize before we deliver that to SaaS. That's our public cloud offering. Private cloud, we'll expect to receive that shortly afterward, similarly to how we're doing the web preview with a staged rollout process there. And then after all of that, we'll be delivering the permission schemes probably around Q3, maybe Q4 at the latest.
Great. Question here from Steve about.
By the way, those are all targets, so don't be having the pitchforks and the Molotov cocktails out front of our office if we don't hammer it in Q1.
Yep. Great question here from Steve about Selective Sync. Can you specify a local cache size limit for Selective Sync?
We currently don't have that configurable. However, just to give you guys a little bit of a plug, we do have something else that we're working on later on down the road. It's going to be a next-gen sync client that will have a fully configurable cache. So that will be achieved in a future iteration of our product, but not for the first iteration of Selective Sync.
Yeah, so Selective Sync, there's really no cache that comes into play. Selective Sync is the ability to choose which folders and subfolders sync or don't sync. So you still have stuff either synced or it's not there.
It's committed to disk at that point, right?
Cool. Another question here from Scott asking, does Anchor currently support Active Directory syncing for file folder permissions on the domain? If not, is that on our roadmap?
No, right now Active Directory is, we integrate with Active Directory for end user authentication and control. We do not integrate with permissions yet. That is something that we have forward down the road. As I mentioned, we're going to be inheriting the NTFS permission, so to speak, and translating it into our modeled scheme, and we'll be inheriting the group structure and the permissions that lie within there for all end users and their authentication. So that's the Active Directory V2, V3 approach that we're taking later on in the year.
Cool. Here's a question I think, it's pretty simple, but kind of speaks to the value of Anchor that's already there. Glenn asked, we sell lots of file servers, both on-premise and private cloud. What we want is for our clients to be able to access some of the shares via Anchor. I know you can do this, I believe, but I'm looking for more information about this.
Yeah. So we've got this feature. We've had this feature out for a long time called File Server Enablement. And what it allows you to do is take the desktop client, install it on a file server, and then point it to the folders, the existing folder structure that you have within your file server, and say, this should be mapped to the cloud. So you don't have to change things on the file server. When people come into the office, if they have a mapped drive or their VPN users accessing it, the mapped drives, they'll still point to the right place on the file server, but now you have that folder also syncing to Anchor. So it then becomes accessible on mobile devices. It becomes accessible on the web. Where you get the all of the value of the revision-based control, of the tracking and auditing. So it's absolutely possible today with Anchor, and that feature is called File Server Enablement. Great way to expose file server data to the cloud, but selectively.
Yeah. Jeff asks, are there any plans for supporting saving back to Anchor from Office apps on iOS?
Yes, this actually works seamlessly on Android. I'm an Android user myself. Pierre's an iOS user, so we provide really good balance here with our user experience and what we feel like we're married to. I can open up content on Android I can open up my Sync tool application and I can click on a file and open it for editing. It automatically opens in my default application, which if it's a Word document, then it'll open up in Microsoft Word for Android, and I can immediately edit it, and then the moment I click Save in Microsoft Word, it then syncs that up to the Anchor server, and all of my desktop clients that are subscribed to that content and my mobile devices that are subscribed to that content immediately sync that content down. And I was even testing it a couple weeks ago, and I was seeing my notifications pop up on my desktop client indicating, you've just received an update on this content, this content, this content. It was seamless. We're able to achieve that with our integration through the native operating system with Android. We delivered the exact same type of functionality in iOS in previous versions of iOS. However, in iOS 9 Plus, they've become a little bit tighter with locking down their operating system. So our integration is not as tight as we'd hope. So we're looking at alternative ways to provide that type of functionality, one of which will be, if we can't control the way that we can integrate and operate with Microsoft Office applications in iOS, we will provide our own, and that's what we demonstrated to you with our collaborative editing. We will have a mobile version later on down the road. For now, though, we're just focused on delivering the web.
Awesome. So Pierre, I know you mentioned file server enablement, and that's really kind of one of the standout features of Anchor. There are a few questions about it, so I'll go ahead and one from David is, does file server enablement work on a NAS?
Yeah, so the file sync client can read from network paths. We don't have an application that can be installed on the NAS itself, but if you install the client on a machine, another server that's always on that has access to that NAS, you can point it to the NAS and have that data synced. So there is support for it, but that's the requirement.
And we have a full blown out feature, knowledge base article on that feature and functionality that can guide you through setting that up. Very simple.
Cool. And then Jeff asks, would this work for backing up and syncing for end users who are working remotely and are not necessarily on the same domain as the file server?
Yeah, absolutely. The beauty of this is that it allows you to bring all of those different users under one umbrella and control the data from one place. So you can include the file servers, you can include the NAS devices, you can include the in-office workers and the remote workers all in one collaborative environment. So that's the real power of Anchor.
Yeah, say goodbye to the days of VPN.
Yeah, I've never used VPN in my life, and frankly, I don't want to, and I'm glad I don't have to now. Now, here's a question from Bert. Can you selectively sync the file server using file server enablement to exclude specific subfiles or directories from uploading?
So you can choose you don't have to choose the root level folder. You can choose subfolders, but you can't, if you've chosen a top level folder, you then can't subsequently exclude the bottom folders. What we encourage people to do is to really think about their data organization strategy. If you have a file server that's had a lot of different networks of paths that have been created, everybody's got their own unique nomenclature, and nobody knows how to find anybody else's files, introducing or implementing Anchor is a good opportunity to restructure that data and to get more of the top-level folders organized around the core groups of data. And then the mapping becomes very simple, and you have less of those debates about, can you get that subfolder within that subfolder within that subfolder excluded? Well, you don't need to, because we've set up the top-level permissions in such a way that the right people have access to the right data. So that's really the approach we take, and that's what Anchor supports.
Cool. And Ron just wants to clarify that Selective Sync is done on the machine level, correct? So you can, if you have 3 devices, but only one of them has limited space, can you tell Anchor to, sync a folder or like a subfolder down to one machine, but maybe not the other one with limited space?
Right. We understand that there are limitations with some of the competitors out there. Throwing a plug out to box, they do it at the on the server level. That's not too friendly, and that doesn't really satisfy the needs of Selective Sync. We absolutely have it granular per device. So we have our machine subscription management that is per device. So right now, today, you can specify on a per device basis, regardless of what device that is, which team shares you sync down locally. So for example, my desktop at my home office has all of my content synced locally. However, my laptop right here in the office only has the things that I require day to day in order to do my job, because I always have access to this content on the web. So when we release this Selective Sync functionality, it's going to allow me to granularly specify at a more granular level to the subfolders which content I really need on my laptop versus leaving it all thick provision and all of the content on my desktop in my home office.
That's great, and I just want to piggyback on that and also reference the previous question. So the answer to this most immediate question was yes. You will be able to choose which subfolders sync to other machines when the Selective Sync feature comes out.
On a per machine basis.
On a per machine basis. Now, going back to the other question, I just got a message from one of our SEs who let me know that it is actually possible on the file server enablement scenario to exclude subfolders using a bit of a workaround, which is setting the permissions, the NTFS permissions, to exclude the agent service or the desktop client service so that it can't access those folders. And the agent is resilient enough to just ignore them. It'll say, oh, can't access, and it'll only sync the data that it has access to. So there's a workaround there. It's not built into the product or the interface, but there is a solution if you need to implement that.
And another simple clarification on that file server enablement value. If you have content on your file server that is owned by a group, you can map it to a team share that then anybody with devices can subscribe to that on each individual device, managing that granularly. However, if you have content on the file server that's owned and exclusive per user, let's say we have a file server in-house that I've got my own personal, well, professional, but isolated to me personally. Also, Pierre has maybe his own content there. When you do file server enablement, you can map it directly to an end user, or you can map it to a team share. Hugely robust functionality there.
Great. And one more question about file server enablement, and then we can move on. Can you exclude specific file types in file server enablement and Selective Sync?
Yes, absolutely. You do have the ability to exclude certain file types or even exclude files of a certain size. So if you want to make sure ISOs, all those ISO files that are scattered about on a file server don't get synced, or maybe the hordes of media data that users have uploaded, Matt Dugan's Britney Spears MP3 collection, I mean, any variety, you could exclude by extension, you can exclude by file size.
Great. So here's a question that we haven't we haven't talked about this topic quite yet, but Ben is wondering, will hosted Anchor ever support private key encryption? Our clients want the ability to host and sync files that are end-to-end encrypted without giving eFolder or any other external provider access to that content.
End-to-end encryption is absolutely a priority for us. We understand the use cases, we understand the importance of it, and we understand the overwhelming market need for something like this. There's not much we can discuss about it now, but we have a special project in the works to develop the next generation sync client, and this encryption will be a part of that. The endpoint encryption will be a part of that.
Great.
We're hugely excited about it, but it's such a secret that we can't spill our beans yet.
That's right.
Okay, question here from Jeff. Are there plans on enhancing WebDAV remote drive mapping for server-enabled shares, something that provides a workaround to the WebDAV authentication problems in editing Office documents, perhaps?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, WebDAV is it's a file transfer protocol that was built a long time ago. I believe it was by Microsoft, and it's got its room for improvement. And there are a lot of limitations to the protocol itself that we can't work around, and that the Windows native mapped drive experience doesn't really address very well. What we recommend for partners who absolutely need that WebDAV functionality, the ability to map a drive directly to the cloud, is that they look at some of these clients, these third-party clients that have been developed to handle WebDAV in a resilient way, and to get rid of all of those authentication problems, the authentication dialog being presented every time you log into Windows, or the file transfer issues, not having clear visibility into where it is within a transfer, whether a transfer is completed. There are a few that we recommend, I think, in our support community. I would recommend checking it out. Matt, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, the fact that that problem is not going to be around for a long time here. We already have our solution in play and in the works, the next-gen sync client. However, I can't speak in more detail about that, but you will all find that when we actually do get excited to be speaking in a more candid and exposed level on that functionality and that new product value, you'll be very much excited to know that you can put all of those WebDAV problems to bed. You will no longer need WebDAV, so to speak.
Great. A couple people have asked about the slides being available. Sorry, it's a little bit loud here. So yeah, we are going to make these slides available to everyone attending today's webinar as kind of our little thank you. So let's see. One question here, it's actually not in the question log, but I think, Matt, a lot of people have this on their mind. Are there any plans for kind of a UX or UI revamp for Anchor to make it, really modern looking and really, really fresh looking?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing that we're hugely excited for here. We've been working a lot on a new user interface and user experience. This is going to be super seamless. We're reworking all the way down through the information architecture to redesign the workflows for everything in the product. So it's going to be the new and improved version of Anchor, where everything you've grown to love today as far as product value, that will still be available and extended to you. And on top of that, you will have this seamless, lovable experience where you've got these pages that you get to navigate in an intuitive fashion that your end users may not even require any training anymore. So that's really our goal here, is to make this lovable, intuitive, simple, seamless experience to just do work and be productive. And so that's what we're interested in delivering.
Awesome. So, there's some people here in the question log who have been saying we're looking forward to this feature and that feature, like Brazilian, Portuguese language support, file size limit increase on web file uploads. So when people have these feature requests, who should they contact? Where should they submit them? What's the best way for them to get in contact with the Anchor team?
Yeah, so right now for existing partners, they can log into the, I believe, the partner portal, and I think, there might be a feature request page somewhere there. I don't know if that one's launched 100% yet. However, right now you can send a note to support, and they know how to log feature requests. You can send a note to your account manager, and they're working with me daily anyways. So if you put it into the Anchor, the eFolder family, it'll get to Pierre and myself. And we have a handful of things that we've been providing as far as transparency of our features and our roadmap. We've got the product roadmap document that comes out quarterly, and so you'll see what we have on the horizon, what we're focused on to commit to for that quarter. And also, for this new feature request page that we've got going on, or this forum entry, we're going to get that tightly integrated into our, I think it's on the partner portal right now, but it's not on the website. So we're going to try to get it out there on the website maybe in the future, but for now it's for existing partners.
Yeah. And, we're almost out of time here, but, I just wanted to reiterate that we are incredibly excited about the future of Anchor. I mean, we think it's already better than any other solution on the market, and we're just continuing to make it better and better. And we, our mission here is always to be the best partner for every MSP out there. And we already have the #1 file sync solution for MSPs, and we continue to innovate and continue to develop new and great features to make that solution even better.
Hear, hear.
And, just a quick plug for those of you who maybe don't have Anchor internally or you want to try it out for yourself, we do have a free up to 25 user Anchor NFR available to all qualified MSPs. So try it for yourself, see why Anchor is the premier file sync offering in the channel. Simply go to www.efolder.net/Anchor NFR, and in just a few clicks and keyboard taps, you signed up for your free NFR. And this is just to give a little more detail on it. The NFR, obviously, for internal use only, but it does last, for basically an unlimited period of time. So, it's not like it's only a 30-day free trial thing. We want you to experience Anchor internally for as long as possible and really get a sense of all the value that we deliver to every MSP and what you can provide to your users.
Also, speaking a little bit more detail into that NFR, it is for internal use only, and that also implies if you want to onboard other clients or end users, we are providing the opportunity for you to establish trials from this NFR. However, you have to speak with your account manager to make sure that that can be activated in that fashion. So there's a lot of functionality, and it's a fully featured, not for resale license.
Awesome. Well, I think we're out of time now, but thank you so much, Matt and Pierre, for all of your insight, all of your answers to our questions. I hope everybody found this really valuable. But yeah, thank you guys for...
Hey, thank you, Neeraj, and thanks to everybody who joined. Great turnout, great questions.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, and looking forward to speaking to you soon. All right, bye for now.